Hi, my name is Lashay, and I was able to generate 95 leads from 15 through 20 bottom of funnel blog posts. And the way I was able to do this was I talked to the most important teams within the organization for creating bottom of funnel content, which is product, sales, marketing, and CS. And we were able to rank our first bottom of funnel piece 3 weeks after publishing it. And the way I did this was I worked with the content marketing manager. And what we did was we took the insights that we got from those bottom of funnel blog posts and the information consolidation session. And what we did was we baked those into the comparison pages. And it took just me and one other content marketing manager to implement this. No money is being spent outside of what the company pays me to run the content strategy. And the only tool that I use is Ahrefs for keyword research. Any B2B SaaS company can implement this strategy as long as you have your product market fit and you have at least one person on the team that can write content.
If that resonates with you, listen along. Also, check out our other episodes. You're listening to TLDR, the B2B SaaS growth podcast brought to you by Spear Growth. The goal of the podcast is to enable you, our listeners, to generate an additional $100,000 in cumulative pipeline by May 2024. To do this, we bring people who have made a real impact in their companies. They cut through the fluff and dive deep into one tactic or strategy of theirs. I'm your host Ishan. Let's generate pipeline. Hey Lashay, thank you so much for doing this. By the way, for anyone listening, Lashay and I've been just discussing for like 10 minutes. We're starting the recording 10 minutes or 20 minutes late just because we had so much fun discussing like the approach to doing things, and the way she does things is fabulous. It's very similar to how we do it, and I just got so excited. So yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Ishan, so much for having me. I'm super excited about this episode. I feel like people are going to get a lot of value out of this one. So thank you for having me.
Perfect. So why don't you just quickly tell everyone about you in a couple of lines? What should people know?
Yeah, so my name is Lashay, and I run a B2B content strategy consultancy. So what I do is I help B2B SaaS companies create a bottom of funnel content strategy that actually drives attributable pipeline, the things that you guys really, really care about. So just in one line, that's me. That's what I do. I've been a content strategist for about close to 15 years, if you want to count from teenager when I started doing this stuff, because I started learning this stuff at 15. Just hit 30 now, so if we want to count all that, 15 years. If we don't want to count that, 10 years. So that's a little bit about me. It's what I do.
I love that. So tell us about the project. Like, what are the, or let's, you've already discussed in the intro, right? You've already mentioned the kind of results that you got, and it always, I think whenever I've discussed about similar results to people, it's like, hey, that's not how SEO works, right? Or that just sounds, and I've heard things like, hey, that sounds like that's not unbelievable, unrealistic. Like we've heard those, I'm sure you've heard similar things as well, right? So
yes,
if you had to explain the project or just like break it down into stages, what would those stages look like? Your process.
So the stages of my process would first look like marketing and sales alignment, because a lot of companies skip out on that. They think, okay, let me hire a freelancer, let me get my in-house person to do it. But the thing is, if you don't have alignment from the beginning, all of your collateral that you put out after that is going to be misaligned. So this isn't just blog posts, right? This is everything from emails to paid ad campaigns to ebooks to anything that you release. If you do not have alignment on the customer and how your product solves the problem, everything that you put out, any sales collateral, is going to be misaligned. So that's the first thing that I like to do when I start working with teams. I like to get clear on customer and product alignment. The second thing is once we get clear on that customer and product alignment, we use the information that we got from that alignment to start finding their most profitable keywords. So when I say profitable, I mean keywords that show the intent that somebody is ready to purchase something. So specifically with me, I work exclusively on bottom of funnel keywords, meaning best versus an alternative. Usually people call them comparison pages. And I find these to be, again, some of the most highest value keywords that your audience is searching for. Again, because if they are searching for something like this, it shows the intent that they're ready to purchase something. So they're already in the market. I think there's like this statistic that's like there's only 3 to 5% of the market buying right now. These keywords are targeting people that are in that market, right? So that's the second thing we do is the keyword research. The third thing I like to do is, again, going back to that customer and product alignment, is taking the insights from that plus the keyword that we find and being able to properly bake that into the bottom of funnel content that we're creating, right? So the teams that I like to talk to when first doing this is I like to talk to the sales team. I like to talk to CS, product, and of course I sit within the marketing team. So what we do is we lay out a canvas and we talk about everything that we need to talk about, everything from features to capabilities to pain points. And when we start creating this content, the most important thing that we want to do is understand how the capabilities of the product connect to the customer pain points. So once we learn that, again, we just bake that insight into the article. And what usually happens is you have a much more in-depth article than a lot of your other competitors have, because what your competitors are probably doing are hiring freelance writers. Maybe they have somebody in-house that they're hiring, or maybe they're hiring an agency. No shade against agencies, right? But it's all about how they do the process, right? So if they go through the alignment process and they take the time to understand your customer, it's totally okay. But most of the time they don't. And what they just do is they let the keywords lead them instead of letting the customer lead them. So from beginning to end, it's just product and sales alignment. It's finding keywords based on that information. And then it's creating content based on the keyword and the information that we found prior. And then it's really just a 3-step process. There's a lot of sub categories under that, but it's really just a 3-step process. Yes.
I love that. And I love that even more because it's very, very similar to what we do. And before this, I've probably never spoken to anyone that just does this part. Right? Because it's always that, hey, people try and do everything but don't do anything really well. So this is, I'm super excited. So you did mention before when we were talking, for one of your clients, or I'll let you say it, right? Like, can you just outline the results that you got for that enterprise client of yours?
Sure. So I work with a client that sells enterprise SaaS to different government agencies. And we were able to generate 95 leads in May of the current recording, as we're in 2024. So in May of 2024, we were able to generate 95 leads from about 15 to 20 bottom of funnel blog posts. And this is for one product line that they have, and they have several different product lines. So it's a good win. It's a good win for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. So just very quickly, what do you mean here when you say leads? What are you calling a lead?
So I'm calling a lead a qualified prospect. So someone that comes in and maybe they come in, they book the sales call, and they actually want to speak to someone on the phone. So again, this is a very sales-led motion. There's no PLG here. Like, they don't just sign up for a demo and then use they actually have to get somebody on the phone in order to be able to talk about the product. So when I say conversions or leads, I mean people that actually opted in and booked a sales meeting to talk to an SDR.
Yep. Perfect. Right. And I think that's very important. And for the attribution bit, do you also look at this last touch attribution and then sort of see, okay, that's the lead that you have?
That's a good question. So I like to do first touch and last touch attribution. So there are a couple different ways people like to look at this, but the way I look at it is, well, really there are three different ways. Let me break this down. So first touch attribution. If a prospect or potential prospect came to the blog, they landed on a bottom of funnel article, they hit, talk to sales, they booked the call that way. Or last touch attribution, maybe they came in through a different article and the last article that they read was a bottom of funnel one, and that one was the one that pushed them to do a sales call, last touch attribution. There's also another function within Google Analytics, it's called regex, where you can see if an article that you wrote played any part in that buyer's journey, right? So maybe they didn't hit the bottom of funnel blog post first, and maybe they didn't hit last, but it was somewhere in their journey that they seen that post, and then that contributed toward the conversion. So I really like to track it in three different ways, but of course, we always want to see like first or last touch attribution. That's like the fun one. But usually in the beginning, maybe there's a little bit of like, maybe they hit a few bottom of funnel blog posts in between the first and the last touch. Usually that's what I see. But a lot of the time, once, the bottom of funnel articles are up and ranking and getting some traction, it's usually just first or last touch.
Got it. And in this case, can you share, was it first, last, or either? Like, it was one of those two, right?
It
the
was
95. Yeah.
It's a mix, right? And it's a mix between first and last touch. So quite a few of the leads came in on a bottom of funnel article and read 2 or 3 more bottom of funnel articles, and then they converted. So for example, I think one enterprise lead came in, it was a chain of hospitals, and they came in on a bottom of funnel, I think it was a best X for Y type of article. And then they jumped to an alternatives piece. And then from the alternatives piece, they converted. So side note, alternative articles slap. Just in case anybody doesn't know, they are really, really good conversion drivers. So, and I have sometimes people ask me, okay, so where would you start? So first of all, I would start bottom of funnel. But within the bottom of funnel hierarchy, what I find converts the quickest is alternatives, best X for Y, and then you versus competitor, or competitor versus you. So if I had to rank it within that hierarchy, that's how I would do that based on my data and what I've seen work for my clients.
Perfect. Okay. So imagine I'm a prospect and this is a question I'm asking you as a prospect, right? So, hey, Lashay, you've already told me that, hey, these are the kind of articles that work. I know my prospects. I can just, make every combination of these and just create that. Why do I need you to come in and strategize anything? How would you?
Yeah. So usually I call these BoFu symptoms. And it's almost like if you go to a doctor, not in any way relating myself to a doctor, but it's almost like if you go to a doctor and you're like, doc, my back has really been hurting. And usually sometimes when your back hurts, it's not the actual, the back isn't the reason that it's hurting. Usually it's tight hamstrings or something else that connects to the back. So when people come to me and they're like, oh, well, I've been publishing, but I haven't been seeing any inbound leads. And we have a lot of top of funnel content. And I have somebody on the team that's an SEO specialist, but they're more technically driven than strategy driven. So there are a couple different, again, what I call BoFu symptoms that people come to me with. And they're like, I don't understand, like, where's the gap in the content strategy? Another big one is not having all of their information consolidated. So again, when I first come in, I get the team together and we pull the most important information that we need to create the bottom of funnel articles. And a lot of times when I work with the teams, I'm like, okay, so do you have this? And they're like, oh, no, but this person on that team has it, and this person on this team has it. Information is scattered across the teams. And it's like, the difference between top of funnel and bottom of funnel content is top of funnel, you can usually get away with having a not, I don't want to say not qualified, but maybe a freelancer that doesn't have like super in-depth knowledge in your field. Because the knowledge level of the freelancer and the person searching the top of funnel article is probably isn't too far off. But when it comes to bottom of funnel, The tricky part about that is that the people that are searching for articles like that are very, very well versed in their field. They've probably been assigned by somebody else to go find a solution, and now they're looking and they're reading. And so when you try to hire a freelance writer to just come in and do the work, a lot of the time the knowledge level of the freelance writer is way lower than the knowledge level of the person actually searching the
Yep.
solution. And it's not difficult for the person reading the article to be able to tell this person has no clue what they're talking about, right? But
Yep.
the thing is, you can't task a freelance writer with, oh, just go to Google and, look it up and try to compile
Yep.
something together. It's like the most important information is in your organization. It's not on Google.
Yep.
So I guess to go back to your original question, it's like, why would they need me? Well, really, because I serve as a liaison between the teams to bring the information together. Not only that, but once we get the information together, I'm able to help the team put it in a way that makes sense and that helps the prospect or the potential prospect convert when they read the piece.
Interesting. So I think there's two parts to it, right? And just let me know if I'm missing something. That's why I'm just
Sure.
reiterating it. So the first part is finding the right opportunities. Yes, starting and finding the first 10 may not be that. First 10 may be obvious. You found those. Finding a few after that, you might have missed a lot of things, and you help your clients find those. And the second is then creating the pages is a pain. So
Yeah.
that requires, as you said, right, just getting all the information in one place so that then it can be even shared with a writer, and that's the second
Yes.
piece that you help with.
Yes. And that's the funny thing too, Ishan. Like, I've worked with close to a dozen SaaS companies over the past year, and it's really all about education. So even if you have a writer that isn't well versed on bottom of funnel content, a lot of the time they just need a guide to be able to help them put the information together. But again, you can't expect a freelance writer to come in and first of all have time to do all of this,
Yep.
have the willpower or the bandwidth to do all of this, because again, it's work, right? Especially in the
Yeah.
beginning when we're gathering information. It's like, if you already have the information together for the freelance writer when they come in, and maybe you have templates, and again, that's how I work with teams, like we fill in templates and things like that. Like, if you have the collateral and the information for them already together, you're going to make your life and their lives so much easier. And not just that, but you're going to be able to get way better results than if you brought a freelancer in and just tasked them with, okay, write some articles for us. And, and a lot of the time leaders think that content marketing is a black box where it's just like, okay, maybe I'm going to get something out of this. I don't know. Let me toss a little bit of money
Yeah.
at it and let's see what happens. It's like, no, you know what I mean? Like, you have to come at it with a real strategy. And if you do that, you're going to get some great results. But it's just about understanding that SEO has a lag period. You're not going to get the results right away, but you will see some things I call leading indicators, right? So at first, and here's the thing, I used to call them vanity metrics, but I don't anymore because it's not all vanity, right? It's more leading indicators. So for example, when I work with a team, the first thing we see is we see a traffic increase, right? Coming specifically from the bottom of funnel articles.
Yep.
Then we see impressions, and then we start to see clicks, and then we start to see conversions. And it literally happens that way every single time. It's the impressions, it's the page views, it's the clicks, and then it's the conversions. So you'll see some leading indicators that a strategy is working. So when you start to see those, don't give up after 30 or 60 days and be like, oh, well, shoot, we tried and it's not working, because a lot of people like to compare it to paid ads where you pay to play, right? So if you put in a
Yep.
certain number, you just need to see if you get that number back. Organic is different, but what I love about organic is that it's a moat. So what you do is you keep building on top of it, and as you continue to produce, you're going to start to see that conversion chart go right up. But it might be a slow, it won't be a GA hockey stick, maybe like some paid ads are, but you'll slowly start to see that curve upwards as you continue to publish, right? So I just wanted to, this quick rant, I just wanted to let people know, like, just because you don't see results in the first 30 days does not mean it's not working. You need to first look for leading indicators. And then so usually with my clients, it takes maybe about 90 days or so for them to start generating inbound leads. So again, those leading indicators, then we usually see the leads, but don't give up on it before you've given it a chance.
Got it. One
Yeah.
follow-up question, that 90 days, is it from the day people start working with you, or is it from the day the first content piece goes live?
That's a great question. So it's usually from the day people start working with me because I usually have set periods that I do things, right? So the first 30 days is just like pure information consolidation. It's me getting to know the team, talking to the content
Yeah.
marketing manager, so on and so forth. The next 30 days, we begin publishing. In that first 30 days, going back to that, is where I set up tracking as well for us to be able to see what leads are coming from what articles specifically, attribution, right?
Yeah.
And then the next 30 days, we start publishing. 30 days after that, we keep publishing, and we just keep publishing so we can understand what's working and what's not working.
Yep.
But usually, the way I have it set up again is just to make sure we have alignment in the beginning. So once we find that alignment, we don't have to go back to that step. We can continue to move forward with publishing over and over. And again, as you add to the product roadmap and come up with new use cases, and that's when we might have to dip back into alignment just to make sure we're capturing all those things. But
Yeah.
other than that, no, it's just alignment for the first 30 days, 30 days after that, publishing, and then you just continue to publish.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's say these ideas that you come up with, right? You could easily come up with 10, 20, 30, in some cases 40, 50 ideas as well of
Sure.
content that needs to be created. How do you prioritize?
So I like to prioritize the content strategy by what the sales team tells me. Again, this is the importance of cross-functional communication. So I like to talk to the sales team and they tell me, okay, we want pipeline for this specific product or this specific use case or this specific segment. And depending on what they tell me, that's where I'll start. So really how I like to lay out a content strategy is I like to lay out, again, different companies like to break this down in different ways.
Yeah.
Take what's applicable to you, but you could break it down by use case. You could break it down by ICP. And once you do that, within each one of those, I like to create a top, mid, and bottom of funnel strategy. Of course, I focus on bottom of funnel because that's where the conversions are, right? So I like to talk to the sales team again to get a prioritization on what they need. So for example, the company that I'm working with, they have several different products. They have one product that has really great market maturity. They're kind of like, saturated there. That's great. So what we did is we went to the second product line, one that they wanted to get more sales calls with and things like that. Those 95 leads that were driven in May were actually to that second product line. And the funny thing about that product is that when I first came onto the company, that was not a part of their core products. They actually acquired that company while I was working with them. So what happened was they acquired the company. From there, we broke it out into segments, and then we did a bottom of funnel strategy for each one of those segments. And then that's how they were able to get the results that they got. But again, I like to talk to the sales team so they tell me, okay, we need pipeline to this product. We want to focus here on this quarter. And then maybe the next quarter, they want to shift the focus a little bit. Maybe they want to go to another product line for the next quarter. But I just like to have them tell me what they like to do so I'm not working
Understood.
in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and let's say let's say it's a single product, if you have a lot of competitors, if you have a lot of angles to tackle, you still can get very often, 30 different opportunities from the same product as well, or at least let's say 10, 20. And then as we both will get into, it's very hard to create these pieces of content. Like a single content could take a long time. So even if it's just 10 or 15, they need to be prioritized because it takes a lot of time to create one. So how do you sort of do that? Or is it just like, hey, we need to create all 15 so the order doesn't matter as much?
Yes, the latter, right? So the order doesn't matter so much because eventually we're going to need to create all of these. What matters more than the order of how we publish the BoFu articles is what are we publishing first. So what I mean by that, I mean from a broader strategy perspective, right? So you have top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. The important thing is targeting the bottom of funnel first. And again, it's all dependent on your goals, right? So if your goal is to drive inbound leads, You want to start bottom of funnel. If your goal is demand gen, brand awareness, you want to start more top of funnel, right? So I think it really all depends on their goals. But again, there's no specific order.
Got it. Yeah.
We, unless, okay, here's a caveat.
Yeah.
Again, if you talk to the sales team and you hear a specific competitor or a certain number of competitors that keep coming up in sales conversations, I always tell them start there, right? So competitor alternative immediately. And then if there are people searching for your brand versus competitor and you don't have anything around that yet, that's another super high priority. Again, because and I get this thing all the time, Ashawn, where people are like, "Oh, but I don't want to talk about my competitors in the content, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that." I'm like,
Yeah.
the potential prospect is going to be searching for this, whether you write it or not, right? So now, it's an issue of do you want to control the narrative about your company, or do you want Capterra or G2 or
Yep.
all of these other companies controlling the narrative about your product, right? So again, I get that a lot where it's like, oh, we don't want to, we don't want to talk bad about our competitor. Here's the thing, you don't have to talk bad about them.
Yep.
All you do is explain what you do well, and then you explain what they do well. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yep.
it gives the potential prospect a chance to self qualify if they're a right fit, right? So the article should not only be for conversion purposes, it should also be a filter. So when the person is reading through the article, you need to be able to talk about the product to the point where they're like, okay, this is for me, or maybe this isn't for me. And what you're doing is you're saving the sales team time and energy by making sure they only get on the phone with qualified prospects.
Got it. No, perfect. So just I think maybe the last question on the selecting the keywords for the strategy bit,
Sure.
right? Or selecting the topics. Now, in this scenario, right? Let's say if there's a couple of topics where the topic or the keyword warrants something other than an article, or like a blog style page. It could be like, hey, this is more of a, let's say, a product page, or this is this. You know, people are expecting a product page for this. In those cases, how do you tackle that? When do you realize that's the case? And then, you know, what happened? Or do you feel like, hey, for most of these topics that you pick up, it's usually just blogs and blog style articles that do well most of the times. So it's not really
That
any priority.
That's a good question. So yeah, sometimes so the way I determine this is I like to do SERP analysis. So basically what I'll do is I'll go to Google, I'll type in the keyword, and depending on what shows up when I type in that term is the way I know I need to go. So for example, I've
Yep.
worked with teams where the main use case is on the home page. So sometimes when we target the bottom of funnel keyword, the home page will tend to cannibalize the keyword that we're trying to go after,
Yeah.
or cannibalize the blog post. And a lot of the times I find Google is smart enough to understand the intent. So if they have a homepage that's ranking for the bottom of funnel keyword, but we do a blog post around it, if you give it a couple of weeks, a lot of times I'll find that the blog post will actually outrank the homepage for the keyword. Again, this is if you type in a specific, like sales enablement software. And let's say there's a bunch of, best sales enablement, top 15 sales enablement homepage, sales enablement, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you lean towards what you're seeing. Let Google tell you what to write, right?
Yep.
And what I mean by that is like let them tell you what the intent is. Don't try to necessarily go against the grain. If you're seeing a bunch of product pages,
Yep.
write a product page, right? If you're seeing a bunch of blog posts, write a blog post. If you're seeing home pages and things like that, optimize the home page for that specific keyword. Again, like take that lightly, because I know some companies have different, multiple use cases. Some companies are horizontal. Take that lightly. But again, use the SERP to tell you what direction you should go in. But I never really force it. Again, if it's like the top 10 and maybe like 8 out of the top 10 are product pages and there's 2 blog posts, I might tell them, you know what, go ahead and write a product page around this versus a blog post, because we can see the intent is a product page.
Yep.
Flip that around, if it's 8 best of and 2 home pages, I'm going to be like, okay, we need to do a blog post around this.
Yep. No, I agree. That's exactly what we do. We just look at the SERP. There's very few exceptions. If there's just one thing I would like, you've already covered it. I'll just maybe clarify a little bit more. Is if there aren't, if there were only 6 pages total that are relevant, go your own way. If there
Mm-hmm.
are 20, 30, 40 different pages, and then a few of, and all of the top or most of the top 10, in the top 10, most of the pages are a certain type, just do that. Don't try to be very
Yes.
creative with it in most cases, right? Unless you really, really feel that, hey, the intent uh, truly is something else. For some weird reason these pages are ranking, in that case maybe have a deeper look. Otherwise just follow what you're seeing on the trends you're seeing on Google.
And
That's
I
exactly
love
what.
and I love how you put that, right? Don't try to get too creative, right? Because to me there's a such
Yeah.
thing called data-driven creativity. So it's like you can get creative but do it within guardrails, right? So if you
Yeah.
see that, 8 out of the top 10 results are blog posts, get creative within a blog post. Don't do a product page and you see,
Yeah.
because, oh, well, we already have this optimized for that. Yeah, but if Google's telling you, like, okay, this intent is for blog posts, like lean toward the blog post and then get creative within that arena
Yep.
versus trying to say, okay, let's build an entirely new product page for this keyword, right? Because you're probably working harder and not smarter.
Yep. 100%. Coming back to a couple of other, maybe just I want to really focus the remainder of all of our time on the
Yeah,
content creation bit. So I have to ask a question because everyone else will
sure.
want it. So just like answer it in short. Um, Backlinks, right? When you're doing all of this,
Yeah.
you understand why I'm giving such a big caveat. I've done this for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. So my take on backlinks, I'll just say this. I haven't built one backlink in about 5 years. And I say that proudly because I used to be a heavy backlink type of girl. Back
Yeah.
in 2015, all my old SEOs know when we would do the PBNs and all that other stuff. It's like, these days, what I find is that if you put most of the attention on talking to the customer, Google does the rest. And I know it's like, oh, that's so out of my control. But it's like,
Yep.
yes, but the part that is in your control is how you speak to your customer. Because here's the thing, and I see people on LinkedIn say all the time, oh, long form content is going out of style. They've been saying that forever. SEO's dead. Like, SEO's been dead for the past 10 years, and here we are, right? So it's like, once you understand how to talk to the customer, you're going to see metrics that matter. And once you see those metrics that matter, usually those are the things that help you rank, right? So, for example, back to the company that I'm working with, we've seen session durations as long as 4 minutes on bottom of funnel posts.
Yeah.
Now, again, usually that's because the knowledge level of the reader of a bottom of funnel article is usually way higher. They have much more experience. They're reading, they're comparing. They probably have you and 2 or 3 other tabs open comparing your solutions to them. But the thing is, we've seen session durations long like that because, and then for the person just
Yeah.
to go on to convert after that. And it's because we're speaking directly to their pains.
Yeah.
And not only are we speaking to their pains, but now we're matching capabilities of the product to their pains. And now they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you know what? That makes a lot of sense. They know what I'm going through. Let me reach out to somebody and talk to them. So I find if you focus on the content, really the back and
Yeah.
again, I haven't built a backlink in years. For me personally, for my own consultancy and things like that, I don't focus on backlinks either because getting on
Perfect.
podcasts like this one and having people share my content, they give me all the backlinks I'll ever need.
Yeah. So I completely agree. That's why I wanted to keep it short. For most bottom funnel pages that we have seen, I think 85% of them you don't really need backlinks. For the 15% you need, you could do two things. Either you ignore them and just create them anyway, and then you just get lucky, or you identify them and then you just set them aside and see that, hey, these are the pages that we created but we aren't ranking for.
Yes.
Just by creating those pages, you still are getting data for other
Oh,
variations
totally.
of that page. That's
Side
great.
note, Ashawn, too, for the folks that are listening, one great way to figure out if your articles are going to convert sooner than later is to run paid ads to them, right?
Yep.
So once you produce the bottom of funnel blog, maybe, you have, Google ads running. What I would do is I would bid on the same keyword that
Yeah.
you're trying to rank the blog for and start running paid traffic to that, because I found two
Yeah.
things. Number one, it gives you an insight into which articles are going to convert sooner than others. And usually, if you do, in the case you do want to build backlinks, you'll know which articles you need to build them to first, because
Mm-hmm.
usually if it converts on a paid side, it will do the same on organic. Number two, I found, at least anecdotally, that the article ranks quicker if you can run paid to it.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, I'm not saying like those are hard, but again,
Yeah.
working with a dozen SaaS like this is what
Yeah.
I've seen over and over
Sure.
and
Yeah.
over.
And
Yeah.
yeah, like we are an ads and SEO agency, so those are the two. This is a play that
See?
we do
Yeah.
very often. But yeah, we
Yes.
haven't seen a difference in lift. But it always feels like that. Coming back to which I think we've discussed a lot on one part. I really want to discuss before we run out of time on the
Totally.
content creation bit, right?
Okay.
And so we might go a little fast on this, Lashay, because
Sure.
I,
It's
I
all
want to
good.
get deep into this, right? So
Okay.
on the content creation bit, let's say, can you name like the top three types of pages that you usually end up creating with your clients? Two
You
or three,
said top
any.
three. You said
Types
top.
of
Well,
content. For example, you said comparison pages is one. Do you also do
yes.
any other types of pages, or that's the core focus usually?
So my core focus are comparison pages, but I tell people too, middle of funnel articles can convert very well depending on how you position them, right?
Can you give a
So a
couple
lot
of
of
examples of like
sure.
just topics? I might cut you off a little bit here just because for
You're good,
time,
you're
but
good.
yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah.
So any articles that start with how to, can I, should I, things like
Yep.
that.
Understood.
Usually because the person that's looking for that wants to know contextually how your solution fits into their workflow.
Yep.
And if you can let them know that, usually that's a good conversion driver. People will fight me on this one, but template keywords convert like crazy too.
Yep.
It,
Perfect. Yeah.
whatever your product category is or whatever you solve for template, you walk them through how to do the thing, give them the
Yeah.
template and say, hey, well, instead of using this manual template, our solution does this thing more automatically, faster,
Oh yeah.
whatever you want to say. But yes, middle of funnel keywords can convert really, really well too, depending on how you position them.
I have to add this one sentence. Middle of like templates are the way to think about which templates are going to drive the most demos, which I have found, which you might really like,
Yeah, yeah,
Lashay,
yeah, yeah.
is what do you want your prospects to experience? That after experiencing that, they are more likely to make the purchase decision of a software in your category.
Yes.
Just to break that down, right? When you use a template, you're experiencing a very frustrating solution to a problem.
Yeah.
When you experience it, you're like, hey, it still is frustrating. So you've experienced that frustration. So now you can. It's much easier to tell them that, hey, just won't. It'll work without the frustration you just felt. And then if your
Yes.
template can make people experience that, it's going to work much better for demos. It's an experience you're delivering, not just a template. I think that shift really helped us. So
Yes.
I
Okay.
sort of went
No,
on a
love it.
tangent. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love it. And I totally agree. Again, if you can take them through the job to be done
Yep.
in a more, and I don't want to say more difficult way, because you giving the template is
Oh yeah.
helping them,
Better
but
than what they
it's
had. Yeah.
yes, it's still not your solution. So
Yep.
totally agree. Yes.
Yeah. So coming to comparison pages, because that's the primary approach that you take, right? So
Yeah.
coming to comparison pages, what information specifically do you focus on collecting from different teams, right? If you had to like say, hey, at least like this from the sales team, from the customer success team, from the product team, like usually these are the pieces that
Yeah.
really help me. Yeah.
So from the sales team, I like to collect pain points. From customer success, I like to collect benefits. From the product team, I like to collect features. Let's see. Capabilities too. Some people like to group those together. I separate them out. And usually Those are the primary ones. Again, I like to get
Yeah.
very granular when I do the customer research again because I need to have it broken down. Okay, how exactly is the product solving their problem? And then even above that a little bit, I like to segment out the content strategy in general, right? So maybe
Yeah.
there's different sub markets that you know,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be a vertical market that you're in. You might be horizontal. You might serve a ton of different companies, right?
Yep.
For vertical companies, you're probably going to exhaust your BoFu strategy faster.
Yep.
Usually, when that happens, you want to move up the funnel. Again, depending on the product roadmap and other
Yep.
things, as you expand the product roadmap, you expand that bottom of funnel pool that you can play with because new features open up for you for new use cases, which opens up
Mm-hmm.
for new ICP personas, all that
Yep.
stuff.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's usually the information I like to collect from the
Love it.
teams. Yeah.
I'll ask a slightly controversial question, which we face all the time. Um, Most marketing folks listening to this would say, "Hey, I know all of that stuff. Why do you need to go to sales or any other team for that information?" So, Lashay, why do you go to other teams for that information?
Because it's like you're trying to figure out, okay, where do I need to put my focus? Like, what are the pain points that the customers are dealing with? Sales is getting new intel every single day. It's like, if you want to know the pain points of your customers, why would you not go to the people that talk to them every single day? You know what I mean? And a lot of times, and I find, at least with startups, this isn't as bad. But with the larger companies, like past Series B, it's like communication starts to get siloed. So the product team only talks to the product team, and the sales team only talks to
Yep.
the sales team. And it's like, it's so much important information that's being withheld within these teams. And
Yep.
it's like, at least from what I find when I'm working with teams, it's almost like a eureka moment. Like, whoa, like, okay, now I see how all of this comes together. And now I see the importance of cross functional communication between teams because it's like, you know what I mean? The product team has certain intel that the marketing team doesn't have. Like, they're looking at your competitors, they're diving into
Yep.
capabilities. Like, it's just so much information that these different teams has. The tricky part is number one, getting them all on a call together. And then another thing, Ishan, real quick, that I find is that
Yeah.
if you do collect this information in the beginning, it cuts down on you having to talk to subject matter experts for
Yep.
every piece, right?
Yeah.
So I like to do all the information gathering in the beginning. And then, you know, again, if you open up for new use cases and things like that, maybe we'll go back and collect some more information. But I find if you collect all of the information in the beginning, or at least as much as you can, it decreases you having to go to a specific subject matter expert because one of the problems that I hear is like, oh, my SMEs don't have time to talk to me and they're always busy. And it's like, okay, get everybody on one call, extract the information you need, then take that information to marketing and have them run with it.
Yep. So
Yeah.
Lesha was very nice when she said all of this, but marketing, if you think you know most of it, you probably don't. There's
Yeah.
always nuances that the other teams
So
have.
true. Yes.
That's
Yes.
I have to ask this question. So, okay, was there anything that I should have asked that I didn't or I missed about this entire process? Or if anyone wants to run it themselves, they would probably need that information to do it themselves?
You asked about tracking a little bit. You asked about like first and last touch, but one thing I will say is that GA4 is terrible, and I tell everybody that I talk to. Um, they shave conversions. They don't report on what they're supposed to report on. It's like UA is sunsetting finally, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know. So my advice would be if anybody can try to find a third party type of tracking. At least that's what I've done with my clients. So companies like Amplitude, Dream Data, and I know with some other great ones that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head right now, but those two are great companies to actually. Oh, Lead Feeder is another one. So it's like try to find third party tools that actually help you get more granular with tracking again. So because again, when I'm working with my clients, I like to be able to come to them and say, look, this article drove this amount of leads, which led to this amount of pipeline. I like to be very specific in that because, again, I don't think marketers are accredited enough to what we do. We drive pipeline too, right? It's not just sales, it's everybody that plays a part in it. So I like to be very specific with like, okay, tracking and how we do that. But that would be the only thing I would add. Like if you guys are, need help with tracking, try to find that third party software. Again, Dealfront, which is, Lead Feeder, and Amplitude and Dream Data. Those are great.
Perfect. So just to summarize a few points that we discussed, from a cost perspective, it doesn't take a lot or maybe anything apart from getting Lashay on board. There's not going to be a lot of other cost, and then also the cost of all your team spending time, and then there's going to be a cost of the writer. That depends on whether in-house, outside, which writer do you go with.
Yes.
It's going to be that. Apart from your tracking tools, I don't think that should be included in the cost of this project. It's just, I think, a company-wide thing, so I'm not including that. From a cost perspective, that's not there. From a time perspective, I think it takes about 3 months to start getting demos.
And that's a good point on the cost part, right? So like the company that I'm working with right now, the only thing they pay for SEO wise is me to actually like oversee the strategy and do everything. And for the tracking, those are the only two things that they pay for. And again, SEO doesn't cost a lot if you do it the right way. Again, people put like an overemphasis on tools, and you don't need all that stuff. You just need somebody to be able to come in and put the strategy together for you. And you're going to be able to save more money than you probably ever thought you would be able to save. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so if you had to give a quick pitch to everyone listening, what would that be?
If you are a B2B SaaS company and you've been publishing on your blog and you're not seeing inbound leads, or maybe you are seeing inbound leads, but you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know how to track them, and you're ready to start seeing attributable pipeline come from your blog, reach out to me. I'm here to help you.
Perfect. Love that. Thank you so much, Lashay. This was amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ishan, for having me. I had so much fun.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you for listening to the TLDR podcast. In case you're wondering, Spear Growth is a marketing agency. We help B2B SaaS companies like yourself with ads and SEO. Check out our website at speargrowth.com. That is SPEARGROWTH.com. Just like this, every episode starts with a 1-minute summary of what we discuss. Pick the next episode to listen to based on what you can implement right away. And after you implement any of these tactics and see an impact, we'd appreciate you drop us a note on podcast@speargrowth.com.